Okay, great. Just to confirm, you guys did hear me. Just a thumbs up from your side. Okay, I'm seeing a few thumbs up. And yeah, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you guys online. Getting closer to project 3 submission. Most important submission in terms of uh, the value it has towards your final mark. So very important to try and work quite hard on obviously submitting it on time, but being thorough in your answering of each section. Each section, sorry, requires a textbook reference, except obviously for your annexure A, which is your questionnaire, which does not require a reference. Each other section requires a reference from a textbook, firstly, and then secondly, an additional, hopefully authoritative, like a source like a academic journal article, but otherwise a credible source like we looked at last week. An additional research textbook is fine as well. But as we look at project 3, the research methodology, we can look at your research paradigm and design, defining your study population that leads into your sampling method, describing your data collection, to explain and support your chosen data collection technique, attaching a questionnaire as annexure A, and explaining the actual data analysis. And there, a lot of what you need to write in project 3 is already basically given to you. I've spoken about this the past month or so, but there's few choices that you need to make, but it's basically already based on the choices that you made for your ERCA research assignment that's continued into your projects 1 and 2. Again, 80 marks, 50% of your final mark. The word count is 1800 to 2200 words. Refer to the rubric for how marks will be allocated and answer all questions from your textbook. And then try and introduce other credible or authoritative sources. And I see that quite a few more of you are joining, which is fantastic. Could you please suggest recommend a word count per section as well? What you can do there is if you okay, I'll try and suggest a word count specifically, but I am gonna go through how many paragraphs more or less you're gonna have to write about in each section. What you should look at is the sections that are more worth more marks are usually a bit more words that you obviously need to use, like your data collection section, which I believe we'll double check now, but I think it's 20%, sorry, 20 marks. So that needs to be your most like fleshed out section, the one where you're most descriptive. But maybe we can try and calculate a word count mark, but so, okay, so firstly, your annexure A, your questionnaire, that's not part of your word count. So what's going to be part of your word count is the paradigm and design section, the population section, sampling section, the data collection section, and the data analysis section. If you're aiming for 2,000 words, and there are 5 sections, then you're looking at 400 words per section. But because I think we're going to double check now. Your sampling method section is 15 marks, your data collection section is 20 marks, and I believe your data analysis either 15 or 20 marks. That can be a bit more. So you can aim for your data collection section, maybe 500 words, for your sampling method 450, and then I believe your study population is 10 marks. With your paradigm also 10 marks, maybe you can aim for like 350 words each, but that's like a very rough guideline. Doesn't necessarily mean that that should be the word count per section. Yeah, but we can have a look at it now. So just for example, how to reference an academic articles, for example. So your study could be a qualitative study that's exploratory in type. aimed at business sustainability of small to medium-sized enterprises. So what you can do is find qualitative journal articles, and you can review the methodology section of those journal articles. So for example, data studies also do interviews. What was their sampling method? Um, did they use a similar population? Was it a similar research type? And then, for example, this article, Sustainability and SMEs, opening the black box from Capuro, Pizzi, and Santini. I don't know if I butchered that names, if at all. For example, what sampling type is used below, if you look at it. So in the special issue titled Sustainability and SMEs, so this is from the abstract. Opening the black box, we compiled 8 articles that dissect the multifaceted relationship between small and medium-sized enterprises and sustainability. So just to take a step back, the population is actually not people. The population in this journal article are artifacts. And the artifacts are, can anyone tell me what the artifacts, what is the actual population of this study? Relationships, you can say, is the, not the unit of observation, maybe closer aligned to the unit of uh, analysis. So Colleen says SME enterprises, not articles. Okay, Anushka got it there. So the actual articles is the population that is being analyzed. So they sampled articles, and you'd see if you were to read this journal article, they had a pool of articles that fit their description for their methodology for their research design, and they basically narrowed it down to 8 specific articles to be analyzed. Um, and then which sampling method did they use? So remember, we have a broad type of sampling method and like the category of sampling, for example, which is 2 types, and then you have subtypes for each. So can anyone identify the main type and then the subtype of sampling method just based on that sentence? We compile 8 articles that dissect multifaceted relationship between small to medium-sized enterprises and sustainability. So probability, they don't technically say which sampling method they use and which subtype would it then be, Marty. Um, they don't like overtly say, but we can almost surmise what Anushka says systematic. Anyone else have any ideas? Ellen says non-probability sampling. I think Ellen might be closer to the truth. And Yanola says purposive. So if I would surmise from what they wrote in the article and based on their sentence, I would also say purposive sampling because it seemed like they intentionally chose these 8 articles to fit their study. I know the relationship part does, and usually 99% of the time when you talk about relationships, we do talk about quantitative studies. But in this case, I would say that this is rather more of a qualitative study in the way it analyzes the articles. So just looking at the second part there, of the 8 papers, there were some of the methods below. So what can you do based on this? So these two screenshots that I made, um, the research aims to decode elements of to facilitate effective assimilation of SPMs by SMEs through qualitative exploratory methods, incorporating interviews with SMEs, and then the second one, adopting an inductive and qualitative research paradigm. The investigation revolves around multiple case studies. So these are two. So this paper from Computer, I'm guessing. They analyzed two of these articles below, which is two of these screenshots below. So what can you do if you saw this article and you saw that these two articles that they talked about, two of the 8 articles, mentions that they also used qualitative exploratory studies, and they say that they're using an inductive and qualitative type of research. What could you do if you're also doing a similar type of study? Related to your research to support the use of the method, use the same method. So yes, you can use it as a reference. So what you could do is you could go to these references, and then um, within the study, go to the original journal article and use that as a reference within your journal article. So that's what you can do for your research. And this was also for qualitative, but you can do it for quantitative as well. So in as and I mean, like I've said previously, the journal articles that you guys have already used for projects 1 and 2, go and look at those journal articles. Most likely than not, some of those journal articles very closely relate to your to your research. So if they did a quantitative research, correlational or predictive or whatever, and they state that in the article, you can reference it and say similar to um, Capito and PISA 2023, this research will adopt a probability systematic sampling method. Can you guys just quickly react for me so I can get a bit of feedback with a thumbs up or surprise face for a no? If you're happy with the thumbs up, if you understand what I said now, or with a surprise face if you want me to like uh, re-explain or whatever. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. Yes. So always everything needs to originate from your textbook for project 3, except obviously your questionnaire, which no references are required, and you attach it after your reference list as in a lecture. Um, you reference your textbook first, all the answers are in your textbook, and then you find additional academic articles or other research, um, either papers or research textbooks to support your answer. And uh, Google Scholar has, but EBSCO has quite a few research papers and textbooks outside the textbook for um, your textbook research matters. Yes, but don't go too in depth with the theory. So, for example, if we go into your paradigm in design, you guys have a choice of interpretivism or positivism. Do not do critical realism. Um, if you choose interpretivism, obviously qualitative, positivism, obviously quantitative. You can in one sentence explain that uh, interpretivism aims at subjective truth and the experiences of participants. You reference your textbook. Uh, this is why a qualitative study or qualitative methodology will be adopted. And you can again reference your textbook, but maybe you reference another textbook. And then you can say similar to blah, 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 who used interpretive qualitative study using interviews. And then that's basically then this research will adopt the same. So interpretivism can be defined in 5 different ways. if you look at the end of, I believe, chapter 2 of research methods, you can define interpretivism um, in the epistemological way, which is the study of knowledge, the axiological way, which is study of value, the what's the study of something that's real, real ontology, that's the one. So you don't go through all of those 5 different ways of explaining what interpretivism is. You define interpretivism in one clear sentence that states that, I think I said it earlier, but it is it's aimed at analyzing the subjective experiences, usually of people, but it could be artifacts as well. But you can just say of people, as will be adopted with the study, which would interview participants. And there's various ways you can align it to your research. There's no like strict definition as long as it is a paraphrasation or you paraphrasing through your understanding in your own words, writing about what interpretivism is. Like I said, I believe it's the end of chapter 2, where there's a lot of places in chapters 1 and 2 where they define interpretivism or talk about qualitative research and so on. But there's a nice table that explains the ontological, the epistemological, the axiological, the methodological, and the meta theory related to each of the paradigms, interpretivism, positivism, and critical realism, which goes into depth. What I don't want you to do is define interpretivism or positivism through all these 5 positions that fit within each paradigm. I just want you to you can define it maybe in the epistemological way where the aim is to find subjective knowledge from your participants, for example. Indirectly, Anushka, yes, you need to refer back to your research problem because obviously your research is based on the actual research problem that you identified through doing your own research. So you could mention there that in a one sentence, mention that your research problem is to investigate the experiences that SME owners have with regards to load shedding, which aligns to interpretivism in the way that subjective um, knowledge is important to understand I don't know, the lived experience of SME owners, for example. There's also with the integration of different sources as well. Introduce your textbook with the reference from interpretivism, introduce another additional source to link it to maybe qualitative research or qualitative methodology, and then you link it back to your research, where you could introduce maybe an academic journal article, and that can be 3-4 sentences maybe for your first paragraph where you already mentioned interpretivism, qualitative research, and linking it back to your research problem. So just practically your paradigm and design. So obviously you need a textbook reference with at least one additional credible reference. Aim for 2 to 3 paragraphs. Mention the paradigm, the methodology type, the research type, that it is a cross-sectional design. So a longitudinal design is incorrect. You can't do a longitudinal design. You are undergraduates, firstly, and secondly, it's not feasible, but I've spoken about this previously. If you're doing quantitative, it's deductive analysis. If you're doing qualitative, it can be deductive or inductive analysis. And there's a whole deep conversation on which one is which for qualitative study. You reference it from your textbook. But if you have the word explore or exploratory, or you're doing exploratory type of research, then it's inductive research. And then link to your research and your reasoning. So that's everything that you need to mention. The research type, for example, exploratory research, qualitative, interpretivism, correlational research, type of research is quantitative and positivist. Should you work on areas first that need to be improved and then do the project? Can we still email you questions on what to improve? Yeah, you can definitely still email me questions on project 1 and 2 and where you can improve and everything. If you do email me, please don't do like either Well, firstly, try and email me from that original topic email that you guys had for first semester. If you can't find that email or whatever it might be, but either way, just give me context in the email as well. For example, if you have a question about your research question, send me your research question. Tell me that you maybe don't understand this piece of feedback, or that does this maybe align to qualitative research or whatever, and I'll give you guidance. So be very specific in your question. Don't just send me like, um, so I'm not happy with my project 2 mark. I don't know what I did wrong, blah, 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 because I can't then guide you, because now I have to go check in which group you are, then go to the feedback and see, okay, I already gave you feedback. Well, don't you understand from the feedback? So, yeah, just take note of that, I did give you feedback in a rubric, and that if you maybe don't understand my feedback, or you did make improvements based on my feedback, maybe just send again your research question or your theory or whatever, and I can give further guidance to be very specific. Okay, great. Thank you. So guys, quickly, like I said at the start of the session, can you guys, and I want quite a few of you to participate, and we'll go through it as quickly as possible. Those of you who have already done it, or maybe still need to start with project 3, now's your opportunity. Tell me what your paradigm is, what your methodology type is, what your research type is, and then if it's a deductive or inductive. For example, quantitative, sorry, positivist, quantitative, correlational, deductive. Just write it like that. Boom, 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 boom. I'll give you guys a few minutes to answer. Anushka says positivist, quantitative, deductive. That's right. And then, wow, what would be your research type, Anushka? So for quantitative and positivist, it's usually correlational, predictive, or descriptive. But usually, if you have hypotheses and it's to do with a relationship or correlating one thing to another, and if one thing affecting another thing, it is correlational. But maybe you want to do predictive or descriptive research. And I need at least 2 more guys. Come on. Okay, positive is quantitative, descriptive, and deductive. That's great, Marty. That should be fine. Descriptive research can both align with quantitative and qualitative research. But then when Anushka asked earlier about your research problem, you can then align that this is your research problem and you are trying to describe this phenomena. And through testing hypotheses, you're going to use deductive reasoning. Remember, guys, everything in research is interrelated from top to bottom. You can always refer back to, um, yeah, you can always refer back to everything that you've already written about. And then I want, well, come on, guys, one more of you can share the idea. Even wing it, guys. If they haven't started Project 3 at all, you can just wing it. Okay, there we go. We have another 2, interpretivist, qualitative, descriptive. Yes, yes, that's fine as well. And then obviously, Ellen, based on if you're doing descriptive, then I would say you're doing deductive reasoning, because usually it's only the exploratory that does inductive, because with inductive reasoning, you're trying to break apart a phenomena because we don't understand something or something that's happening in our everyday lives, for example. So with descriptive, you're trying to describe it, so you're trying to put different parts together. So that would be more of a deductive reasoning. So, okay, great. Thank you. And then interpretivist, qualitative, inductive, I haven't thought, but this is where I'm leaning towards. Okay, great. So you nail out then most likely you're doing exploratory research. As the under also positivist, quantitative, descriptive, deductive. Yeah, well done. Similar to Marty. So thank you for sharing, guys. Then for your population, okay. For your population, you need to mention your target and accessible population. So you can briefly, just in one sentence, with a reference that the target population is the entire group of people that is uh, targeted in your research. So this can be very broad, guys. This can be basically all small to medium-sized enterprises in South Africa, all small to medium-sized enterprise owners in South Africa, all informal traders in South Africa, all entrepreneurs in South Africa. And then your accessible population, you can say that, and the accessible population is the population that is accessible to uh, the research or to the research aims. So that would be, and then you can continue stating that um, the accessible population will be sampled from Port Elizabeth, Nelson Mandela Bay, Eastern Cape, Cape Town, Johannesburg, wherever it's feasible for you to actually um, conduct the research. And then you need to mention a unit of analysis. For most of you, it's going to be the individual because you would want to know either the individual perceptions, experiences, or the relationship that this uh, is analyzed through this research. Or it could be organizations if you want, if you're trying to analyze uh, an organization or grouping or group of people. But usually it is individual. Then your population parameters. You'd see that in your textbook, they talk about 3 population parameters that you need to mention, and then obviously having multiple credible cited sources. So does descriptive lean more towards deductive and exploratory, more to inductive? Yes. That's usually what it aligns to. I can't think of a way that an exploratory type of study would be deductive, if at all. So I believe in every situation, an exploratory type of research would be inductive research because it's something, a new phenomena that we don't fully understand or don't understand at all. Well, an example of an inductive study, you just go back. So if you look at this middle section here, so looking at this study, uh, the research aims to decode the elements that facilitate the effective assimilation of SPMs by SMEs through a qualitative exploratory method incorporating interviews with SMEs that are incorporating SPMs. Uh, I can't remember what SPM is. I think it's something to do with like sustainable business management practices. The study augments current understanding by spotlighting the crucial influences of supportive external conditions. So what makes this an exploratory type of research is the fact that they are analyzing um, how SPMs assimilate to SMEs that hasn't been studied yet. So it's something very brand new. And that specific relationship or that specific assimilation or effect has not been studied yet. So what makes something exploratory is like, just as a very basic example, if they go in this more natural sciences as we are in social sciences, is if they go to the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest, I believe, the deepest um, trench or the deepest hole basically in the ocean. Every time they go deeper, or every time, even if they go down, they find new life. So basically, new type of fish or new type of crustaceans or whatever it might be, which means that that's exploratory research. It's very new. Whereas if you, for example, go to the sea and you trying to see the changing, um, what do you call it when fish like move through one part of the ocean to another part of the ocean or whatever that's called, of whales, for example, of blue whales. That's not exploratory research. It might be a more of a descriptive type of research or um, something to do with that where it's not something new, just seeing, okay, what are the changing patterns? So it's not nothing fish migration, that's the word. You're just saying what the changes are in the fish migration. So it's not the exploratory side, it's not brand new. It's obviously all research is new, but with most research, you're just trying to find a new perspective in current research, where with exploratory types, it's something that has not been studied yet. That's also why with was it the feedback? I think it was feedback with Project One. I told you guys just be very careful with if you do use the word exploratory research, it has to be a very brand new phenomena that has not been researched yet. Like if you do like uh, research into the effects that the Israel-Palestine war has on local Jewish businesses in South Africa, that could be exploratory, but also depends on what part you're investigating. If you're specifically looking at um, how it affects trade, for example, it could be exploratory, or how people experience the trade or the changes in trade in South Africa. But that also depends on if there is actually any real effect on it. So you might just do a descriptive type of research or maybe a correlational research type for that as well. So that's why I'm saying it's for qualitative exploratory research, it's usually very brand new. Um, Research is a new phenomena. There's changes in uh, large or significant change in the world. So, like COVID-19 is another way. There was a lot of exploratory research that came from COVID-19 because most most businesses did not exist in our last worldwide pandemic, which was like in the 1915s or whatever, 1910s, 1920s. So most businesses didn't exist back then. So researching how people, businesses and business owners act in those situations would be exploratory research. Uh, Looking at the practical application of your population, aim for 2, maybe 3 paragraphs, but aim for 2 paragraphs, at least one additional credible source with your textbook reference. You have to mention the accessible target population, the population size as well. So try and even like Statista, but usually Statistics South Africa is a good reference here, where you try and find the entire size of your population. So, for example, if you're doing investigating SMEs, try and find the number of SMEs in South Africa. And usually Statistics SA would have that data. Otherwise, just look around. There might be some other local research companies or market research companies that could give you a good estimate. Again, your unit of analysis, usually individuals, groups, or organizations. Your population parameters, which is the nature, the size, and it's obviously aligned to population parameters and the unique characteristics of your population. So a unique characteristic of a population could be that they need to fit the criteria of what an SME is, and then there you can reference which definition do you want to use, and you can use journal articles to define what you think an SME is. So the criteria would be maybe you base it off employment, that they have to have more than 5 but less than 200 employees. And yeah, just you can use that type of references for that. Or if it's an entrepreneur, it needs to be a person that is the owner and is part of the managing of a specific business that aims to grow the business or whatever it might be. So that could be part of your unique characteristics that you also can use as a reference. Not News 24. By credible sources in this case, I mean either obviously academic or authoritative sources like journal articles. Otherwise, you can use other research textbooks, but in this case, are not really News 24. Like Statistics SA is fine, Statista or other market research-based reports, but yeah, not news or organizations in this case. So looking at your sampling, you start off with probability and non-probability sampling, probability for your quantitative and non-probability for your qualitative. If you're doing a quantitative study and you want to use a non-probability sampling method, you need to state why it's not possible to use a probability sampling method. And if you're doing a qualitative study, you can only do a non-probability sampling method. Now, I have mentioned this before, so I'm not going to go into too much detail there. And then textbook reference, at least one additional credible source, and aim for 3 paragraphs. Again, it's 15 marks. I mentioned the sampling method. So the broad sampling method, probability, non-probability with a textbook reference, the specific sampling method type. So narrowing it down to the type of probability or non-probability sampling method, the actual sample size. So the sample size, you can use a sampling size calculator online to calculate if you're doing a quantitative study based on your population size. If you're doing a qualitative study, you find a reference that states that qualitative research through the use of interviews aim for between, I believe, depends on the source that you use, let's say 6 to 15 interviews. So the aim of the study would be to conduct 15 interviews or when the data saturation point has been reached. What's the data saturation point? Uh, for example, if you interviewed 8 people and you see that the sixth, the seventh, and the eighth interview all is giving you the same or very similar answers. So if you do the ninth and 10th interview, you're not going to find new information. You can say that that's the data saturation point. So how you would just say it is that the aim is, for example, 15 interviews. However, if data saturation is met before the 15 interviews, the interviews will be cut short, but not less than, say, 6 interviews. But again, reference. Would small hotel owners in Cape Town be broad enough as a population in the sample? Will be sample hotel owners in the winelands? You mentioned SA as a population area. That is why I'm asking. Yeah, no, that's fine. You just say that your target population is hotel owners. And then you can say hotel owners in South Africa is the target population, but the accessible population would be hotel owners in um, Cape Town, Stellenbosch, Wellington, Paarl, and Franschhoek, or wherever is on our trip, they're probably not all part of one metro. So is there not a name for this area? Uh, I can't think of any like the Midwest. I'm not sure if there's a name for that area, but otherwise you can say that the sample. Yeah, you can say the one. Yeah, that's oh yeah. You can do the winelands area, and you can say that the winelands area of the Western Cape, and then you can say which includes Stellenbosch, Wellington, Paarl, and Franschhoek. You can say the population size of hotel owners in um, South Africa is this. I'm sure you'd find an estimate somewhere of the amount of hotel owners or small SME hotel owners in South Africa, and then you can see if you can't find an estimate of the number in that area as well. So Ellen already basically did this, but if you guys can quickly share your accessible target population, your unit of analysis, your sampling method, and your sampling type. So basically just entrepreneurs of South Africa. The accessible population would be, let's say, entrepreneurs, South Africa, and then comma Durban. Unit of analysis, for example, individual. Sampling method, probability, sampling type, simple random sampling. Title is determining how business sustainability is affected by financial education levels of SME owners in the GRDM. So my target population, SMME owners, so micro enterprises as well. So accessible SME owners of GRDM. I'm sure you're saying like in your background what GRDM is. I can't think now. Municipality. Unit of analysis is the list. So your unit of analysis, and you have to say if it's individuals or is it the organization, individual SME owners. So that individual is very important. And then the list would be the list of participants either from a database or from another yeah, usually a database or directory, something that you would sample from. Okay, and then the parameters, size of the SMEs, what other characters can be added, is size characters. Yeah, that would be a size. So, for example, within that unique characteristics, you should say that SMMEs are businesses that has at least one employee up to, I can't remember what the actual definition is, up to 200 employees. Um, that is that has a revenue or turnover less than a certain amount. So that would be your unique characteristics. Okay, probability, simple random sampling. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing, Anishka. And then, come on, guys, I want at least two more you can share. And hopefully someone has not shared their details yet, but obviously everyone is welcome. I'll give you guys a few minutes. Could the list be a chamber, a business chamber? And yeah, it can be like a business chamber, and if you have a list of businesses. Um, and you can distribute it. Obviously, you guys aren't actually distributing it, but yes, you can use that because it's basically a type of directory. Um, are some of you typing? Because I don't see the typing icon. Are you guys falling asleep? I'm just, come on, guys, I'm waiting for at least two more. So I'm just going to continue so long. So the data collection, a clear, detailed, and well-referenced explanation that's provided for the data collection method. So this is sometimes a part of the submission that students struggle the most with because they aren't descriptive enough. They aren't referencing different sources, and they either explain it in a shallow manner in the way they would collect data, or they don't, they write like one or two paragraphs, and this is worth 20 marks. Including its administration, so how you would actually go out to conduct a research. So you would say something like, the participants of the study would be purposefully chosen, because you're doing purposive sampling, purposefully chosen based on the criteria of the population parameters. Um, then you can maybe briefly mention the population parameters again, but it might be making it too wordy then. You can, and then use these stuff like that, like the questionnaire would be distributed physically, or it would be read and distributed to the person if it's an interview, or if it's a quantitative method and you're distributing surveys, you'd say that distribution will take place online via email, where the database or the directory, and or in this case, the business chambers for Anushka would be um, email once, and then if the response rate isn't high enough, will be emailed the second time and maybe even the third time, for example. So target population banks in Pretoria, eastern suburbs, accessible banks in Brooklyn, mainland. So you can make a target population model. It can be banks in South Africa. Just to make sure, are you talking about bank branches? I'm not sure if you want to include like the branches of banks as well. And then you can say the banks within Pretoria's eastern suburbs, maybe, and then you can list that Brooklyn, Midland, Ferry Glen, in Pretoria, and then the parameters, whether digital marketing expenditure influence digital engagement among Gen Z consumers. That might not necessarily be the parameters. The parameters are more aligned to what makes the population fit with your research. So, for example, it must be they must be located in the Pretoria eastern suburbs. Uh, it must be banks or similar financial institutions that deal with people's finances or with their savings or whatever. And then that could be your parameters, and you can obviously reference that based on how you conceptualize what banks are. We'll use the probability sampling method, so specifically simple random sampling. Okay, so that's fine. So I'm guessing you're doing a quantitative study, yeah. And could you also go to the businesses in person? So Nushka, if you're doing quantitative research, preferably not. Obviously, you guys aren't actually conducting research, you aren't actually going out. But what you could say if you're doing a quantitative study is that probability sampling will be used through simple random sampling or maybe systematic sampling. Explain how it would be implemented in your data collection method. And then you go on to say that um, if the response rate is not high enough, a non-probability sampling method will be introduced like purpose of sampling, and then you explain how it would be introduced. Because remember, with quantitative research, you are trying to be as unbiased as possible, but unfortunately, with qualitative research, because you have to do it either in person, sometimes online or via phone, but usually do it in person, the interview, there's already a lot of bias introduced. But there's also why the interview process is open-ended questions. You try and find out the experiences and stuff like that. It's usually, unfortunately, not possible to do a probability sampling method with qualitative research. So, okay, Capitec, Absa, FNB, Standard Bank, and Nedbank. So even like that, one of your population parameters could be the big five or the big six banks. So it's Capitec, Absa, FNB, Standard Bank, Nedbank. Aren't you missing one? Was it the big four, now it's the big five? Maybe you can include African Bank as well. There's quite a few banks like Discovery Bank, but obviously they don't have branches. So yeah, you could say the big five banks then. Why do I think okay, it's fine. So again, textbook references, at least one additional credible source, 3 to 4 paragraphs, mention how you would practically implement it, mention the questionnaire as well. You can even say that Annexure A is attached, um, or sorry, the questionnaire is attached as Annexure A, and this is the aim of the questionnaire, and you can again link it back to your research problem. You can state which database will be used, or how the population or the sample would be accessed, and how would you find and distribute the actual questions, and then link it to your research and reasoning. So still the big four, but Capitec, I think, is the largest bank in terms of number of customers and market cap. I think like in this year was it, I think they outperformed FNB in terms of market cap. I think FNB was the biggest, but either way, you can say that. I'm sure there's an article or something that talks about the big five banks in South Africa, but you can just maybe look at it. So the data analysis method. So again, this should be strongly justified, specific data analysis techniques, clear alignment between the chosen data analysis method and the research problem objectives and data collection methods with the multiple credible sources. Textbook reference, at least one, but remember you can do more than one additional credible sources, and for 3 to 4 paragraphs. Mention how you practically analyze it, the specific analysis type, elaborate on the specific, and link it to your research and your reasoning. So if you're doing a qualitative study, I want you to pick either qualitative content analysis or a thematic analysis. Only one of those two. There are others, but thematic and qualitative content analysis is the best analysis method that's usually more applicable to the type of research that we do in the field of commerce. So try and pick one of those two. Otherwise, the course analysis maybe, but you're going to have to thoroughly explain how that would work. But obviously, reference from your textbook and then include an additional credible source. If you're doing quantitative research, nice and easy. Statistical analysis, and then you can introduce what type of maybe statistical software you are going to use to analyze your research, like Pearson's coefficient, and you might include, oh, you have to say that you're doing inferential statistics, and then you're going to include the descriptive statistics as well. Yeah, you can use that as a guideline, Anushka. Yeah, you can use basically that as a guideline. Even if you want to do like 5 short paragraphs, that's fine as well. If you're doing quantitative research as well, you can also state that um, the alternative hypothesis will be accepted in this scenario and rejected if this type of data would be um, gathered or analyzed through your statistical analysis, and then vice versa. The null hypothesis will be accepted and rejected in these scenarios. Yeah, like range and central points are more descriptive type of research, and you can mention that in your quantitative study, where it's like standard deviation, correlations, and Pearson coefficients are aligned with inferential statistics. And if you have hypotheses, you need to include these standard deviation, Pearson coefficient, etc., in your research. Yeah, when would it be accepted and rejected? Basically, yes. So those are the 5 steps for the statistical analysis. And then for qualitative analysis, you have the 6 steps for thematic, where qualitative content analysis have 2 extra steps. So I'm not going to go through this, the sampling method. Our participants will be a pros and data analysis method. But for your questionnaire, it should be a separate section added as an extra A, and it should have your overall research type questions that's aligned to your research question. So if you're doing a qualitative study, 10 open-ended questions, quantitative study, 10 closed-ended questions, attach it as an extra A. This is not part of your word count, but also have it like an introduction paragraph. You introduce the study, you ask for informed consent, etc. And remember to use credible sources and strong justifications required. There needs to be a clear alignment, all obviously aligned to your projects 1 and 2 as well. But even though project 3 is marked separately from project 1 and 2, make sure that there is that alignment, that you're not having hypotheses in your project 1, but now you're doing a qualitative research in your project 3, because when you submit your project 5, project 4, and you have a qualitative research, you explain a qualitative methodology in your project 3, but you have a hypothesis in project 1, you're going to lose a lot of marks. Thorough methodology explanation, your research design methodology, etc., and logical argument structure. Again, remember, if you guys are using ChatGPT or any other type of AI, please disclose AI use. Here are the steps, and as you guys know already, there is that interactive document on Arc where it can auto-generate a disclosure form for you. All you need to do is fill in the details within the form, and it can generate it for you. It emails it to you. Disclosing AI use. Remember, use it to develop your understanding with AI. Example, Googling and reading Gemini's response is also AI use. If you're using it as a paraphrasing tool, please be very careful, because it should be based on your understanding, not how a tool paraphrases the information from your textbook or journal article or otherwise. Even if you use it for grammar, please disclose AI use. And then there is my reference list. Any final question, guys? Pick one questions on the survey. What type of questions should we add? For your survey questions, quantitative, it should be close-ended questions. It can be yes/no questions, but for quantitative, mostly like questions like strongly disagree to strongly agree, maybe ranking type questions if it aligns to your research, where with your qualitative research and for 10 open-ended questions, so no yes/no questions, no questions where the answer is already given, you just have to pick it. It's all about um, what is your experiences about this? How do you feel about this? What do you think about this? Aim for like 10 for each, quantitative or qualitative. Not more, try not to do less than 10, obviously. If you do a few more because you think it would better try and answer your research question and solve your research problem, then that's obviously fine. And you can even like in your data collection and then in your data analysis method state that if you're doing, for example, quantitative research, questions 1 to 3 is aligned with descriptive statistics, where it would be questions where the population and its maybe the phenomena or the variables or whatever would be described from the population, where questions 4 to 10 would align best with inferential statistics. Is there an extra for the survey? Should we type it in? Anushka, I don't think I understand your question. Sorry. Yeah, Likert scale questions are, you have to use that for quantitative research. No, no additional PDF, guys. Please submit it right after your references as in lecture A. Don't have an additional PDF. And otherwise, guys, please email me if you have any questions on Project 3. It is very important that you guys do well, especially if you want to pass and or get a distinction. It is, they set guidelines for you to do well in Project 3. If you lose marks if you don't choose the right answers. And I think this is the third session at least where I go through Project 3. So hopefully you guys are set up and ready for Project 3. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks again. All the best. Please email me if you have questions on Project 3 again. 40% of your final mark. It is 80 marks, and enjoy the rest of your evening, guys. I'll hopefully hear from you soon. Thank you, guys.